microcosm was applied, used widely in medicine, in chemistry, in architecture, in political science, like what Ibn Rushd and Al-Farabi talk about society as also as a kind of microcosm, epitome of the read Al-Ghazali's work. The work of Imam Al-Ghazali, that you can see there. Yeah, his work talking about the why the city, the concept of the city as a as a microcosm. Yeah. So in fact, that the microcosm within us, the in society, and then the microcosm. This relationship was a very important principle for many Islamic sciences within Islam. Both the Naqli, the sciences, in other words, the transmitted sciences, as well as the rational sciences, the Aqliya tradition. Yeah. So, that alone, now you see the big difference between the traditional and the modern. Yes. So for us, the angels are part of the cosmos. They have their role, their function. Just look at the hadith, numerous hadith about the role and function of different angels. Then of course, there's that domain which lies in between the angelic domain and the physical domain, which we call the subtle domain, which we identify with the jinn, yeah, with the jinn. Of course, every traditional community, cultural community, they have their ways of dealing with the understanding and dealing with this subtle world. The Malays, for example, also know a lot about jinn, but I don't mean the scientific way, something else. But I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about as a branch of cosmology. Yeah, angels, creatures of pure light. Yeah, and then the physical, and then the intermediate, which is the subtle of the world, which is made of fire, according to the Quran. Is subtle fire, not physical fire. But this subtle fire is equivalent to gross light or corrupted form of light. Light of which angels are made. We call this the pure light, whereas the jinn is grosser light than even the physical things, the physical world is also made of light, as admitted by science. Yeah, even modern science saying that admit that reality. Yeah, but these are degrees of light. There's one chapter here is about light, the universe as a layer of light and darkness. So the absolute light is Allah. One of the names of Allah is An-Nur. Allah Nur Samawati wal Ard. Yeah, Allah is the light of heaven, and the rest are manifestations of different levels of light. There's a hierarchy of light. So one picture that I had that is that if we separate the light from other things, just look at light, then the universe is that hierarchy of light, starting on the top, Allah, and then the angels, yeah, and then the jinn, corrupted light, and then until you reach matter. Matter has the least presence of light. It's a form of light, but the least present. That's what modern physics will say. Modern physics will say that even matter is a form of light. Yeah, it's very dark. Darkness is absence of light. But absolute darkness is very interesting. From From the metaphysical point of view, if I may say that, absolute darkness belongs to the divine reality. It's as if that you try not to stare at the sun. Can you stare at the sun? No. If you keep on staring at the sun, you'll be blinded. And we can be blinded by absolute darkness. So, in other words, all these are relevant to science. All relevant to science. They serve as the foundation for study science. So in this book, and say now, and it's more kind of commercial now. So I can say that there are many insights. I mean, for different fields. I know you are not in the same field. Yeah. Some people may prefer certain pictures, but what do you mean? I haven't explained what is this picture is called. This picture. In order to explain what this picture is, again, as I said, we have to refer to Allah Ta'ala. I refer to Ibn Arabi, to Al-Ghazali, Ibn Arabi. Ibn Arabi used the word self-disclosure. Of course, the translator William Chittick used that word, but some use the word manifestation, divine manifestation. And also, of course, the Arabic word is the same, tajalli. Tajalli. The Arabic word, but the word tajalli, tajalla, refer the light, the sun, source of light. So basically, tajalli is God's self-disclosure. God wants to reveal Himself. How did God reveal Himself to us? Through His creation. And the word the Quran used is ayat, His sign. There are many words used, tajalli, and then ayat, you call it sign, S-I-G-N-S. Yeah. Basically, Al-Quran and the cosmos, the universe, is a pair of books from Allah Ta'ala. Both because Allah wants us to know about Him. Why did Allah create the universe? The most fundamental reason why Allah created the universe is because He wanted us to know Him. And this is very clear in that Hadith Qudsi, quoted very often. Hadith Qudsi, I was alone. Before creation, I was alone. I want to be known, so I create creation. So if everything that I create is His way of letting us know about Him, that is the point here. Yeah, Allah Ta'ala has many names. We are only all concerned only with the 99 beautiful names. That is more for practical reason, more for the but not from the viewpoint of knowledge. Yeah, because Allah Ta'ala, as Al-Ghazali mentioned, Ibn Arabi mentioned, Allah has numerous, hundreds and hundreds, in fact, infinite number of names and qualities. Yeah, the 99 just to symbolize His names. Yeah, but apart from the 99, which also exists in the Quran, as they pointed, they exist in the Quran. Yeah, qualities and names of Allah Ta'ala. Nothing can exist. Nothing can exist without first existing in the quality of Allah Ta'ala. This is Tawheed. This understanding ilmu Tawheed, the science of Tawheed. So, If we are students of the cosmos, you name it, you name it, is contained in the quality of Allah. What is one of the issues called now very hot in cosmology, in astronomy? Is the idea of the space expanding, the idea of cosmic space expanding, expand. The theory that the universe expand. Now, if you say that expand, what is the what is there something mentioned in the Quran about that? What is it what is that quality of Allah to do with expanding? Is al-wasi'. Al-wasi'un. Is that is in the Quran? Was one of the names of one. What does it mean? It means the that that which expands, that which expands. With the word inna walamu si'un. Verily, we are the expanders. Now, in Islamic theology, every attribute of Allah is permanent, is immutable, cannot be changed. So therefore, for example, we cannot say that he was only the vast, the expanding at particular moment in the history of the cosmos, but not before that. Then you are saying that an attribute of God is not permanent, it's not eternal. It's not eternal, which is cannot be true. For it cannot be. Then you say that God was once a reality, but not some other time. They will go against the very fundamental concept of sifat Tuhan. You cannot say, oh, that attribute did not exist before, yeah, but only some other time later on. That will be against that, yeah. So that's why, for example, the idea I argue here. Why is the earth expanding? Because if God is al-wasi', then he must manifest that quality somewhere in space. He must manifest that. So that's the key to study everything in cosmology is the names, self-disclosure. Now I call it to make it, say, GSD principle, God's self-disclosure. So if students of physics learn all the kinds of formula, principle now, what's so difficult now to study about GSD principle, God's self-disclosure, Tajalli principle. So I think of course, a lot in this book is not like reading a storybook. Yeah, needs a lot of attention, is a little concentration. Yeah, a good way to understand is you read it together. Be ready also besides you Al Quran, and then you then can understand because there's so many Quranic verses to which I refer. Yeah. So okay, now it's almost. Uh,
9:15. Kalau 9:16 you can continue on the 9:15. See, they're all short tengah high.
Basically, I just summarize them. What are the pictures? Yeah? So picture through that GST principle. What I did is say, for example, astronomical picture. So if I want to present to you quite a comprehensive architectural picture, sorry, the astronomical picture, then I have to collect. I have to collect all the verses, the relevant verses. Yeah, relevant verses. And for that, I use the principle again, which I have not come across, but some hint given by Prince Ghazi, who is the member of the royal family in Jordan, who By the way, finance my research. He financed my research. I like his book, um, The Love of huh?
Love in the Quran.
Love in the Quran. Love in the Quran. That hint, this word Surah Al-Fatihah being referred to the Mathani, the Mathani, which translates to the oft repeated verses. So that is one meaning. One meaning is the oft repeated because we go on repeating the Surah Al-Fatihah. We say Al-Fatihah, billions and billions of millions of people, of Muslims. We say it every day, many times. So the most of repeated verse. That's meaning of the call refer to the Fatihah as the Mathani. But the other one is very, very significant, somehow not pick up. So I thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and you can, which can also apply to the other sciences, not just the astronomy. So social science, anything. Mathani means this is the uniqueness of the Quran. And that's why Al-Fatihah, I say, it generates the whole Quran. It's a summary of the whole Quran. One other meaning, you go to the classical uh, dictionary, lexicon. Yeah? The other meaning in that a word repeated in another place, not exactly, but in different form. All right. So different meanings. For example, let's take one word in Surah Al-Fatihah. Yeah. Yaum, Malik Yaumiddin. Yaum, day. Therefore, it's concept of time. The word Yaum in the Surah Al-Fatihah will appear in several other places in the Quran, but with different meanings, different context. Or sometimes even not exactly the word Yaum, is other meanings. In other words, form, it's context. Yeah. So until in the sense that surah, the second surah, until the end is the repetition of Al-Fatihah, the repetition of Fatihah, but in different forms and formats. So this is to me is a very, very useful way to study the Quran and to systematize these pictures. It's easy now. You want to come up with astronomical picture. The method I'll follow that way. This Mathani way, I call say the Mathanian, the Mathanian way. This is for those students who want to study more about the meaning of the Quran, the depth of the Quran. Yeah, I may be wrong, but I've not come across that somehow many scholars were trying to do that. See, there cannot be contradiction. The Quran must be one whole which is harmonious. There cannot be any conflict between one part of the Quran and another part of the Quran. How to ensure that we do arrive at meaning that really give us that? Yeah. For example, I think the late Fazlur Rahman, said, yeah, many Mufassirin, those who the tafsir, when they do tafsir, plentiful of things to say, but when you look at what it is, they do not achieve that unity, harmony. Yeah, this conflict. So I think we as a collectivity, I mean, it cannot be done by one person. Yeah, I think this is a very useful guide. So what I mean by picture is the picture of reality that is generated by a set of verses, of the Quran. when I wanted to write this microcosm in the Quran, the human microcosm in the Quran, the universe within man, because there's no verse, there's no, if you are looking for which verse say it in an explicit way about microcosm, you cannot find it. You cannot find it. Because you have to collect all the verses that talk about the creation of human being. Because each verse about man talks about different aspect. So one verse alone will never tell the whole thing about human being. You have to collect all, then all. Then all the elements that constitute the human being be there. That's why the first person is not in the Quran. The word microcosm, what's the term? Alam Saghir. Literally, it means the small world. Al-Alam as-Saghir. Yeah? The small universe, or the miniature universe, small. But in that small universe, everything is there. Yeah. So that, but the word does not exist in the Quran. If you want to use, oh, it's not in the Quran, therefore forget it. Therefore, the idea of microcosm is not there. Now, why did Sayyidina Ali radiallahu anhu was the first person who coined that? He was wrong? No, because he did not just based on one word and one verse, but rather based on the whole Quran. If you compile all that, all the verses dealing with the creation, then and then you arrive at the concept of the human microcosm. So that, and this is what I did. So I produced passages, set of passages. Here I produced nine sets of verses, 9 passages of the Quran, which allude to the idea of the microcosm. Yeah? And of course, I said this is very, very useful thing. Okay, I don't to know. I also like to to get back feedback from your question. Yeah, I just provide a glimpse of that. If you want to, you have to read. But I said, don't worry if you read one sentence. Sometimes look, oh, it looks heavy, something like that. I acknowledge some people say that maybe they joke to me, but I think maybe it's true. Prof jokingly said, if I could not sleep, I'll get your book and try to read, and then I get asleep. It is true. Even my daughter said that I think I want to sleep. I cannot sleep. Let me read your book. Then I can beat all the pills, the sleeping pills. Okay, thank you very much, and I hope this book provides some. And I don't write just because for the sake of curiosity, for intellectual satisfaction. To me, is to lead back to Allah Ta'ala. Yeah, the idea is that to help us get closer to Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala, because that is the real meaning of life. That is the whole purpose in life. Yeah, pictures plenty, but don't get lost in the pictures. Pictures are meant to guide us. I said, don't get lost in the forest, jungle, attracted by all kinds of trees, flowers, and then forget that we have to be outside the jungle again. Yeah? And that's the real thing. That's the real purpose why the Quran is written. That's why the universe can also be described as a signpost. Yeah? As a signpost which lead you to Allah Ta'ala. Don't get lost with the signpost. The signpost are meant to guide us. Inshallah. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. I don't get to summarize. The book will be on sale at $25. Okay, then you can line up for your autograph. Okay, you don't have to pay extra for the autograph.
Okay, the question.
Now, for the questions, please be short, all right, direct to the point. Okay, if you need a platform to speak, I will tell Brother Nasir to arrange one session for you. Okay, so inshallah, we have half an hour to 45 minutes for Q&A. Okay, so please.
Good evening, Prof. You mentioned about the West, or is it science? I did not catch it. From it, scientism, it started off with them not believing in God, but you said it's not really that, it's more of them killing off angelology, to believe in angels. So is that a particular period in history which that, can you elaborate on that more? On
Angelology.
Why did they stop believing in angels and how?
Well, of course, it's a long history. It's a long history about it. It's basically the history of the relationship between religion and science in the West. Um, for example, one, if I want to go to the early thing, the concept of the universe as a book. This by no means to criticize Christianity is not our name, but it's just history. Yeah. During the Middle Ages, the medieval period, I'm talking here about um, from the 12th century, 12th century until the 15th century, when the church was the interpreter of the Christian theology. The idea at that time was that there's only one book, which is the Bible. Uh, the position of the church was that if you want to know God, there's only one way, by knowing the Bible, not through the other book, the book of nature, the book of creation. Whoever in the West at that time, including like Roger Bacon, Galileo Galilei, all that, Bruno, yeah, who believe in the idea of book, who influenced, of course, by Islam, who influenced by the philosophers, scientists of Islam. Then they begin to talk about the other book, yeah, the other book. But there's that debate, because there was a debate between the scientists and the theologians. It's just, so in that debate, it happened that while one is they follow the correct path, but not the other one with regard to this philosopher scientists in the West. Yeah, they believe in reason, the importance of reason, the importance of reason. They tend to put reason higher than revelation. I'm talking about the rationalists, the people who use the reason. I'm thinking just briefly. I don't going into the detail, but there was a point. There is a point where there was a kind of feeling, kind of a conviction that it becomes redundant to believe in the angels because you can explain things rationally, scientifically. Yeah? Just like later on, you don't need God. You don't need God as a hypothesis. Yeah. So when God has been reduced to what you call this belief in that deism, kind of the hands of God cut off from the universe. The universe is simply like a clock. The God has created the clock, and it's none, and then the God kind of having nothing to do with the running of the universe, which of course against the view of the Quran. In Islamic theology, metaphysics, science, and so on, we cannot entertain that belief that there's even a moment when God is cut off from His creation. Yeah, God is always in charge, control of creation, even with the help of His secondary agents. Yeah, so you are talking here about before the birth of modern science. There was that period when the angels will just say, we don't have to believe in angels. What is the purpose of the angel? We need anything as long as they can help us to explain what is going on. But now they become redundant because science enables us to explain the causes of things, which of course they misunderstood the meaning of causes in medieval philosophy. The four causes, the Aristotelian four causes, yeah? Not just the material cause. No, no. So that's happened. So angelology became a dead science. But one loss leads to other losses. The moment you reject belief in angels, it's not going to stop there. It's going to lead you to rejecting other things. And finally, of course, God is dead. For them, God is dead. I'm talking about many people in the modern world, yeah, who talk about God is dead. Precisely, science can explain everything. You don't need God to explain what's going on in nature. So that's is that this is angelology. So for us, even until now, angelology is very important. How can we not believe in angels? Huh? We won't exist. We'll be dead if there are no angels. Huh? For us Muslims, belief in angels is in our consciousness. Huh? Is in our consciousness. From small, there are angels taking care, noting what you do, angels of death, angels of, you name it. Huh? Angels regarding the plants kingdom, the fruits, animals, and so on. Angels, millions of angels. And that's why we need to read those books about about angels. Of course, they are archangels. Yeah, there are the smaller angels. The angels themselves are an hierarchy. The big angel, the small angel, they are not irrelevant. They are relevant. For Islamic science, the angels are very important force. They are forces. They are in the universe.
Alright,
Oh, so yeah, some points, the present, I want to get the present. It seems like some people say that the apologies, and saying that every time there's a scientific revelation is scientific. So they keep the Quranic verse. And some say that,
I can't.
okay, sorry. Okay, put it simply. Some say that the Quran has been lucky so far.
The Quran is so what?
Lucky so far. Lucky.
Lucky?
Lucky. Lucky. Because so far they say that none of the verses in the Quran is in contradiction with what science has revealed so far. Okay, but what if we come to the point where there is in apostrophe marks damning evidence that is in contradiction with what Quranic verse has revealed? So how do we approach that? Number one. Number two is
Can you somehow the sound just now?
So far, some people say that the Quran has been very lucky because the scientific evidences are within the Quranic explanation. So what will happen if that one day scientific discovery goes against whatever the Quranic verses are? So what is going to be our reaction?
Okay.
Yeah.
Number two, looking to the future, how do we spark and undertake and sustain this search for Quranic pictures of the universe? Looking forward.
Search for the
How to spark, undertake, and sustain a search for the Quranic pictures.
of the universe.
There are Prof has brought it out. So how do we go forward?
How to spark in future? How to spark and sustain this motivation of this seeking of Quranic pictures of the universe
Oh,
in the future. Yeah.
okay. Okay, your first question. It's all if. You see, it's if. Huh? When you say it's all if, yeah. But that if will not happen. And the question now, if you know the concept of reality, you know what are the possibilities within that. And this question of knowledge. The people who say that because they don't have the picture of the whole. They have only picture of the parts. And this is the problems with modern science. Modern science is very good at knowing parts, but it's not good at knowing the whole picture. Revelation provides whole picture. Reason is only capable of understanding these parts. Therefore, we need that marriage union between reason and wahi. That's the way. I have no problem. People can say that. I say, you go on. You don't believe. There's a problem. You can go on. And you can say, oh, this is what is going on. Proof. I will believe. You can go on hoping that something will happen that will discredit the Quran. But we know what the Quran is. And there is difference between faith and otherwise. Yeah. Those who don't believe, okay, you could go on hoping. Hoping for what? Hoping that that your belief will be proven. In fact, we can ask back. What is it that really you're looking for in saying that? Huh? You can say to whoever you are quoting. You're quoting someone else. Huh? You're quoting someone. I would love to meet this someone. And have a conversation over a cup of tea. Just, but the other one as well, the other one to spark.
How to retain the spark in the search of Quranic pictures for future?
Well, we have to, since you're talking about Quranic pictures, we have to go to go deep into the Quran. There's no other way. Go to the Quran and try to understand. Yeah. So this is this is ocean without you can fathom. You cannot fathom deep. I mean, you cannot go on. Yeah. This is just a glimpse. This is a glimpse. I said the numerous pictures, numerous pictures, infinite. So as far as for us, in the context of our time, we may be attracted to look at certain pictures. That is understandable. We are not in a position at any one moment to look at all the pictures. We in our time, there is the role of science. I don't deny the role of science. Yeah, science can help us. I'm sure many of the things that we're talking about here is because science makes it possible. I mentioned this. Yeah, that's why to me, we are not going on and on, drawing kind of line of separation between what is in the Quran and science. No. Science, which is established to be true according to the reliable methods of proof and so on, then we create a synthesis basically. In every century, in the past, I think, during our best time, that's what Muslim scholars did. They synthesize the existing knowledge in all fields. They synthesize. Now is the time. I'm happy that tomorrow one of the topics will be on synthesis. I have been asked to talk about the synthesis between Western and Islam. I would love to do that. Yeah, the mission of Islam from the beginning has been synthesis, not rejection. Synthesis. All that is true, all that is useful are synthesized within the view of Islam. Yeah, this is what is needed today, not the dichotomy no, rejecting the Islam and Western or traditional and modern. Yeah. There are many, many things that we need from modern science. But modern science alone will not be able to solve our problems, the problems of humanity. The problems of humanity can only be solved through the Tawhidic way, the Tawhidic approach, where tradition and modernity is synthesized. Yeah. I think that's what we need to
Other questions?
do. Sure.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. I have a question in regards to this, just follow up to this. In regards to science, when it comes or when it contradicts the Quran, or when it proves the scientific evidence in the Quran, what we know that science is is constantly progressing. Once we discover more, then more knowledge of science will be known. Okay, but then there's a limit to when it comes to science in the Quran. Okay, we know that that knowledge will only be known when we discover it. Okay, but sometimes maybe some things in the Quran, some scientific evidence in the Quran that we haven't reached to that level yet. We haven't discovered that yet. So that maybe in some cases when the scientists discover these facts, it says that, oh, this is in contradiction with our science right now because we haven't reached there. And we know that the Quran Muhammad itu menjadi qalila, and knowledge we don't know knowledge it except for a little bit. What has been to reveal to us, then we will know about that thing. Okay, so how do we actually compare that to knowing that science has a limit, that Allah has put a limit to knowledge. He wills what He wants to reveal to us, and there's a possibility that there are some things in the Quran that we can't be able to reach it, or it's not the time for us to reach it. So how do we relate that?
Okay. We have to understand now what is the role of the Quran when it comes to knowledge. There are, of course, but the question now, in the Quran reveals things which can be divided into several categories. There are things revealed here which reason will not be able to reach. But contrary to the belief of some Muslims, that is not the only type of knowledge. There are also knowledge which the Quran mentioned 1,400 years ago, but which reason independently of revelation can find. That's why it is possible that what is hinted in the Quran, in the Quran, in the form of guides, can be discovered by some human minds without knowing the Quran. It is possible. It's already one of my scholars I studied, Kutubul Sirazi, he said that. Of course, then some people ask, some Muslims ask, if it can be founded by reason, can be discovered by reason independently, then what's the purpose of revelation? So how do we answer that? Why did the Quran reveal something which human reason can find by itself? There's a difference here between, first, of course, question of time. The purpose why Allah revealed, although it can be discovered by reason, is a question of difference in time. Look, for those Western people, for example, how many centuries after it was mentioned in the Quran, then only they discover it. But for Islam, there are certain things which cannot be postponed. We must know right now. We cannot leave to science that we have to wait for centuries when we are no longer here on the earth. We cannot say, leave it to the future knowledge. We can't do that. Yeah. So that is the reason. One reason. Yeah. Revelation wants to tell us earlier so that we can save time. Save time for science to discover. Yeah. Number two is question of degree of authority. The authority of scientific authority is not the same as religious authority, especially the prophetic authority. Yeah. The authority possessed by prophets, when prophet gives something you accept based on prophetic, is not the same authority, as announced by one scientist or even a group of scientists. So that's again that's important. So therefore, it is possible. Yeah. It is possible that in the Quran are things which can be discovered by mind. In other words, which then of course the question of when, even when the human mind can find when, question of that when. Yeah, that question of that when depends, of course, on the development of many things. So it is possible later on. Your question is it possible later on that it is implicit here, but later we will find it. Yeah, because this book, the Quran, is until the last day. There's no other. That is his last book. That's God's last revealed book. There's no other revealed book up to the Quran, and therefore all questions are going to be answered by the Quran, not the other scriptures, because we are the last. In fact, the Quran itself is the synthesis of all the previous revealed books. The synthesis, which means the answers are there. And that's why I say, we Muslims don't ignore, don't reject what is discovered by modern science. But the question now, how to integrate. And those scientists who discovered that, they do not know how to integrate. We help them. And the fact that so many scientists in the West now embrace Islam after studying, that shows that they need that unifying thing. Yeah. And furthermore, don't ever think that those scientists who are not Muslim, they don't read the Quran. There are many people in the West, intelligent people, who read the Quran even though they are not Muslim, who are looking for insights from the Quran. They read the Quran looking for something. We think we don't know. No, they do. But they, of course, some of that they don't acknowledge it from the Quran. They think it's their ideas. And of course we have that. No, please.
So do you think is it important for us Muslims, since you know that we can discover to this science, is it important for us as Muslims, we have the Quran, we are holding this Quran. Quran is a very important book for us. So is it an essential job for Muslims generally to start science from the Quran, to start proving the scientific evidences in the Quran? Is it important for you?
You have to put this ready. It's very important to understand the nature of the Quran. The Quran, as many already have said, is not a book of science. That is correct. If you mean by all the details are there. The book, the Quran, is a guide. But when we say guide, don't leave it to just to moral guidance. Yeah. Guide also in the field of knowledge. Epistemological guide. We are not making the Quran the guide in the field of knowledge, but only in the field of action, in the field. That's wrong. The Quran is a guide, both with regard to thinking, because it is a complete book. It's a book of knowledge. So your question is, I'm surprised. Why should we ask that question? Because as a Muslim believing in the Quran as a book of guidance in all aspects of life, both in way of thinking and the way of doing things, then that should be the first source of reference. But it's not going to be enough for the details. And this is where Where do we get the detail? Even from the non-Muslims. Because the Prophet ﷺ said, hikmah is a lost property of a Muslim. Wherever you find it, take it. And knowledge is lost property of a Muslim. Allah agree, it's not hikmah, no, it's just, then wherever you find it, okay? So with that kind of guidance, how can we be, so very clear, huh? So very clear. I have no problem.
There is an SMS question. Prof, since it's Rajab, and because Prof is planning to talk about time in a future book, could Prof maybe share with us your elementary thoughts on the event of Isra wal Mi'raj, on the concept of time?
Wow, yeah, another lecture.
Prof, if I can add, because everybody will have to read Surah Al-Kahf. Then how about these 300 years in the cave?
I don't know, I mean, just briefly, but it's very difficult to talk about briefly. It's kind of fun. But first, I want to correct the wrong impression. Because we have been bombarded with a kind of knowledge, one-sided kind of knowledge with respect, not just to time, but everything else. Let us not forget that when we talk about so many things, it is both from the qualitative point of view and quantitative point of view. Time is both quantity and quality. So this quality, time as quality, is where that many of us, many of the young people, especially even the old one, I mean, we somehow do not understand that the concept of time, it is based on the Quran. The Quran, the one day according to us is 50 years according to your calculation. That is about the hierarchy of time. Yeah. Even one had this kursi also. Yeah. Don't worship time. I am time. So when Al-Ghazali discussed with the philosophers the question of eternity or something, it's a question about time. It's about differences in view about time, the beginning. Yeah. Because there's so many terms used. Yeah. Waktu, yeah. Zaman, it's all pertaining to time. Yeah. Yaum is pertaining to time. Yeah. The human yaum and the divine yaum. Yaumiddin. That's a different concept of time because we are going to meet during the day of judgment. And that day is not going to be the same day that we are now. Yeah. So the same thing precisely that the question now, why is it some Muslims reject the idea of that the Prophet experienced Isra, Mi'raj, both physical and spiritual? And some say it's only spiritual, not physical. Something to do with that. That short period of time when it was said that he was not on the bed and when he was on the bed. Yeah, but then in terms of question of time, we even talk about speed of light in just the common knowledge in physics. Yeah? What is the speed of light? What if he can travel greater than the speed of light? These are the possibilities. Yeah, the possibilities. Yeah, because it's related to consciousness. It's related to consciousness, experience of consciousness as well. Yeah, so that disparity between the experience of the ordinary of the majority, hundreds of years, whereas for the youth in the cave, it's just as if it was that's right. That is a question of that the thing between the quality time and the quality and quantity of time, also with consciousness. Yeah, our consciousness can be transformed in such a way that something which is very, very short, brief, is actually very long. that transformation in that. And these scientists are quite interested nowadays. How to transform this consciousness? Yeah. Sometimes we even maybe some of us do experience. Yeah. Why is it that now we can experience? Oh, we feel. We thought it was only a short while ago. If you feel long or something like that, it was actually a long time ago. The important thing to understand, yeah, is that we cannot talk about time without talking about consciousness. And that's the short thing. Yeah? The different types of consciousness. We can go through different levels of consciousness. And therefore, we experience reality of time different way. I have to go otherwise into the scientific aspect of it. I mean, this bit. Yeah. So to me, I accept my own understanding is Mi'raj was both physical and spiritual. No, it doesn't go against the science, the scientific knowledge that we have. In fact, if you understand the theory of relativity presented by Einstein, then we will appreciate the experience of the Isra Mi'raj. Why you can just travel from the earth right to the throne of God in a matter of minutes or seconds. That can be experienced. That can be experienced. But of course, in order to experience that, your body will also be transformed. Your body is something like, how many of you used to see Mr. Star Trek last time? Star Trek, suddenly the body, the body just disappears. The body disappears also something that that light transformed into that. It may not just be a joke or something. It's not just fiction. That's it. According to many classical Muslim scientists, in other words, your body will somehow, when you travel at greater and greater speed, then your body will become kind of the what do you call this becomes spiritual in the sense. It becomes not solid. Becomes solid. You just look at what the name of the game now. You travel. This is a fun park at the parking at the park when you go that. Yeah. If you see that thing getting faster and faster, what do you see? Your imagery. I mean, your perception of that thing which is moving at speed is not exactly the in the form that you normally see, but it changes shape. It changes its shape, yeah. But it's nothing compared with you are traveling at the speed of light. The speed of light. To me, I've given this talk in Brunei Darussalam about the scientific things about this. Yeah, it's symbol. Is it coincidence? Just coincidence that the vehicle in which the Prophet traveled was made of light. Kuda cahaya. Burak. The Prophet traveled in some sort of vehicle made of light. It's all this pointing that because how can the Prophet describe his whole experience, especially 14 centuries ago? What kind of terms to use? You cannot unless you use just the symbolic language. To me, it's very powerful symbol that the Burak in which the Prophet traveled to go to the highest heaven is made of light, because you are entering the hierarchy of light. That's good. This chapter on light, because now from physical light, now you go to the subtle form of light, and then finally spiritual form of light. You're even that Jibril alayhi salam cannot go beyond that. Only the Prophet can go, which means that the prophetic life is even is even finer than the light of the angel. Yeah. All this have to be understood in a proper way, and not just a passing judgment. Oh, this hadith, dying, this hadith. Don't go too quick into that. Yeah. Okay.
Okay, before I leave it to Dr. Aerodin and Brother one more time if he needs to, how about the sisters?
Back to Brother Abdul Rahman's question on how to spark this pursuit in getting the picture, body picture of the universe. I'm just wondering what you suggest that we would need in order to actually try to get this picture, this Quranic picture. As it is, we may not be very proficient in Arabic. Ilmu Tafsir itself is actually a very deep branch of knowledge itself. We haven't even gone into Iraq Quran, all these things. How possible it is to achieve that level of understanding, given our current state?
Well, I suppose this has something to do with the need for some developments, progress in the way we approach the Quran. How to understand the Quran better. That's basically how to understand the Quran better. I find that first, it is very important to understand, because the Quran is the word of God. Word of God verbatim. Quran is both from Allah in word and in meaning. Why did Allah Ta'ala choose Arabic to be the language of the Quran and not Malay and not English? Why the Arabic? Nothing is accidental. Everything has profound reason. Because of all the existing languages at the time the Quran was written, the best is Arabic. But how do we know that? We can only know that if we are a student of comparative languages. Because Arabic, the algebraic system of Arabic, the root word of system, and I find that very useful when they study. Yeah. Okay, the assumption that there must be a reason why Allah Ta'ala choose that particular word and not another word. Yeah. He could have chosen another word, but he chose another word. Yeah. So that means you have to go to the Arabic. Have to go to the classical lexicon, for example, which I find very, very useful. Now, let's take the question of the planets, the sun and the moon, each orbits. And the idea of this Yusabbihun, the Sabiha, the swimming. The idea that what I call now the celestial swimmers. The celestial swimmers. All the planets swim. Only Yusuf Ali used to swim. Muhammad Assad doesn't want to use. The others don't want to use because they say not so scientific. But then when I reflect on this, I said the best word is literal. The literal meaning means swimming, swim. The earth is swimming. The earth is swimming. The moon is swimming. The sun is swimming. And swimming, which no Olympic has come up with with a new type of swimming, art of swimming. Yeah, this is new. This is God Himself. Who what do I say? What is it swimming? The earth moving around the earth. Not just moving around the earth, but while moving, it also rotates. How can human beings do that? Only the dancers of the Masnawi, Jalrumi do that. Yeah. Because they were also dancing. The sacred dance of this, because they were moving, the earth moving while itself rotating. Have you seen the dance of the? Yeah? That's what they do. Yeah, they move around it. Yeah? But the middle, the center also moving because the sun also moving around another center. Moving on another center. So that is marvel, and only God only can do that. Yeah, how a planet moving around the sun, and then with constant speed, and so we know the speed or the movement or motion of that. That was a wonderful part of the picture. One of the best pictures I know I had. You know, I can imagine that. I really see that picture. Yeah. And then I realized that because I've been to Konya several times to see that. Yeah. Now I see that. Yeah. Moving that. But in other words, by following the literal meaning and not allegorical meaning, is both correct in terms of language as well as in terms of the science of it. The science. Let's go again the science of that. This is an example. Yeah, we need to repeat. So, which means what? Basically, what we need to do to rethink about our perception of the Quran, what the Quran means to us. Yeah. I think what's anything like that? About his question about how?
But, because of the low understanding of our Arabic language.
Ah. Yeah, because it has something to do also with the thing I said just now. Yeah. In other words, what's the best way of approaching of approaching the Quran. So there are many such kind of things. Yeah. But that swimmers, one of the best. The picture of the swimmers. That's why I call them celestial swimmers. The celestial swimmers in the Quran. The Quran speaks of these hobbies as swimmers. And why can't we? Because the art of swimming has, even among human beings, the art of swimming has improved. Originally, people just swimming just only either one way, like this, yeah, or also this. But now look at the Olympic game with all kinds of what? Strokes, huh? Yeah. And what's so strange about having now the Earth swimming in space, swimming in cosmic space or cosmic ocean? There is the word. The Earth swimming in cosmic ocean beautifully, in a very beautiful way.
Okay. It's coming to 9:45. I just want to see a show of hands. How many still wants to ask question? One. Okay. Repeated question. Repeated ones. New ones. 1, 2, 3. Okay. Can we take all the 3 at once, bro?
Okay,
Okay, we'll try.
Prof, I have a very practical question actually. We live in a situation where science has been totally desacralized. So we're learning science from a non-divine perspective in schools especially. And you are explaining to us that science must be backed to a divine, to a kind of divine guidance. So how do we actually reconcile this? Because we are taught a certain kind of science in school. We are fed with a certain belief in science. And what you are saying is almost like Bruno when he was saying it, when he was trying to go against the church idea of science. So how do we actually make the divine idea of science or the divinely guided idea of science something that could be taught to the Muslims in general?
Okay. Prof.
Two quick questions, Prof.
Two. I thought one.
Two quick. Okay. First one, how is our microcosm the perfect reflection of the macrocosm? Second question.
How is our microcosm?
Our microcosm perfect reflection of the macrocosm?
Why?
How? Why? And the other one is, what's your take on the Higgs boson particle, which is also known as the God particle?
Sorry, what is it? Apa ni?
The Higgs boson particle, also known as the God particle.
The God particle.
I think someone, but before I forget, let me just give an answer.
Okay.
The question asked by Prof. Dr. Said Harudin, this is a current issue that is being posed also by non-Muslims. There are many non-Muslims who have the same concern. How to have a science that does not forget God, does not want to forget God, regardless of our conception of God. But at least now, at least there's certain similarities. That's what has been one kind of interfaith dialogue which is taking place in the world today, especially in the West, in America and Europe. I'm part of that when I was in America. It's precisely how to have a science education based on the idea of the transcendent, based on the idea of God. Yeah. And when it comes to this question, many Christians acknowledge, many Jews acknowledge that it seems that Islam has more things to offer the contemporary world because these are things which are mentioned in the Quran, whereas not mentioned in their religious scriptures. Yeah, and because they feel that, well, the idea of coming back to God is important, they don't quarrel with the Muslims on that. Yeah. So, another example, which I'm going to mention tomorrow, because of I've been asked to touch on that. Yeah? It's kind of synthesis between Islamic and Western knowledge, especially in science. Seven of us met. We had 1 week of symposium in Japan. And these seven people from different regions. I was the only Muslim. There was one Jewish scholar from Cambridge. He's a Nobel Prize winner in physics. Yeah, but believe in God and believe in what I believe. And then we have one Buddhist from Japan. The Christian, Protestant, and Catholic, yeah, and also Hindu. We were talking about the foundation of science. We talk about we need to change that foundation. Basically, the Newtonian foundation, which has been rejected as not anymore in conformity with the new scientific knowledge. For example, the quantum physics has proved that the foundation of Newtonian physics is insufficient, cannot explain the new realities discovered by science. So when we examine the foundation, the assumptions that we make, see the assumption, 1/3 of the assumptions which we believe to be true all this while are no longer relevant, are no longer valid. Yeah, 1/3 needs to be rejected. 1/3 needs to be rejected. 1/3 can be accepted. 1/3 needs to be reformulated. And there you have people from different religions saying that. So we cannot now make an excuse. We live in a multi-religious society, and therefore we shouldn't think about that. If that case, you are only saying today, in other words, you all have to adopt the position of the atheists, for example, those who don't believe in God. So, what about those who believe in God? What right have they got? Can't they also now together, whether they are Muslim, Christian, but at least there's something common to all of us that we can have when we talk about science education, so that they don't lose, so that by learning science, they don't lose faith in their God. So why are you concerned about the feeling? Of course, with those who don't believe, we can also have something common. We can have something also common with them. Yeah, I think Islam is very good in this, in defining the common things that bind all us humanity, whether we believe in God or not. And another category of knowledge is only those who believe in God. But those who don't believe, they can go to that. Yeah, but don't deprive the believers in God, you know, by just following only what the disbelievers, those who don't believe in God. I think it's something I'm not saying that, but the point is this thing is in the process of being discussed. We need to discuss. Yeah, dialogue is very important, including the son. I'm happy because before you don't dialogue on science. Science is beyond dialogue. Has taken the place of religion itself. Yeah, those who criticize science, you're outcast. But today, no longer the case. Many scientists themselves are critical of their science. So the image of science, the prestige of science today is not the same as 40 years ago. Yeah. Before, there's no critique of science. You can criticize practically anything. You can criticize everything except science. You can criticize religion, criticize God, but don't criticize science. I'm thinking before. Before. But now, there's so many critics of science, including the scientists, the science professor. Okay, your question, first one is,
How is a microcosm a reflection of the macrocosm?
I don't know what I mean. What is your question really? I mean, you know, to know why we call ourselves microcosm.
How is the microcosm very much similar to macrocosm of the perfect reflection?
How God created that way? Because after having created the universe, I said, God, now I want to create my best creature. Yeah, God wants to create the best creature, which is man. That's why man is created after everything else has been created first. God created the mineral, then God created the plant kingdom, the animal. God before us, God created the jinn. The jinn were created before us. The angels were created before us, of course. Yeah. Because God wants to create the best creature, which is man. That's the main reason. Yeah. And then God wants the universe to serve man. Yeah. To serve man. The whole of creation is to serve human being. Yeah. So therefore, we must contain everything in us. And of course, not only that. Funny, the most important thing, Allah breathed of His Spirit into us and created us, which is not created, but breathe. Yeah? The Quran does not use the word create. His Spirit said, "Wa nafaktu fihi." We breathe. I breathe into him. So something wrong. That's the reason. That one you cannot compromise. You cannot. God created that way. You have to accept it. But the reason why, because, yeah. So therefore, one stroke, we disprove the theory of evolution. This the idea. Why we have that man appears the last in that chain of things? Because Allah wants to create microcosm. If everything is to be inside us, of course, not in an essential way. I'll give an example. Maybe in my class on Tahir Astan mentioned last time. In India, there is a center which studies on the physical elements of the microcosm. If the idea of microcosm is true, they say, what does it mean? It means that all the elements in the external world, chemical elements that exist in the world, must also exist within our body. So in 1986, I remember that very well, because I wrote an article researching on that in 1986. Also about 86 chemical elements were already discovered by science. We know sodium, potassium, iron, all in our body. They're different. That is outside. That's the simplest at just the physical level. Yeah. Of course, don't include the what do you call this? The elements which are not stable. What do you call this? Radioactive. Uh, Radioactive don't, because they're not stable elements. They don't exist. But there are even then. It's called that chaotic state. There's that part, the chaotic elements in our body. Yeah. Of course, in brain, in our brain. Yeah. In our mind, the chaotic elements. What they call the psychologists, psychiatrists marvel about that called chaotic state, the psyche, the cycle. So that cycle is very, very delicate, very, very delicate. It can easily be disturbed by forces outside. That's why for our that brain thing. This part of the microcosm, because the gene, the subtle world exists. The subtle world exists. Yeah. And what's the meaning of other jin Islam jin kafir? Or Melayu lah, jin Islam jin kafir. What does it mean that? Because the subtle forces are both good and bad. There's that world called the subtle world which combines good and evil. And then that manifests itself in the plants, for example, in animal. Orang Melayu, the simple way to explain jin Islam, jin kafir. But scientifically speaking, it means that scientists say that, in other words, the natural forces are serve the good of man, as well they are opposed to that. Yeah. You see, kulat, mushroom. Why is that you have the mushroom which is poisonous and some which is not poisonous? Because that proportion of the evil and the good in this. This all discussed by the Muslim scientists. It's not me. It's discussed by classical Muslim scientists before. But how to approach genes the scientific way, not the Bomo way.
The other question on the God particle.
Boson particle.
So what is it? I want you to tell me what is this God particle? Why did they call God particle? No, you ask. Why? What did they? It depends on how you understand it. I have to respond to how you. Can you? I don't know. Who knows about the God particle? Okay. Yeah.
Actually, the God particle is not a term coined by the person who discovered it.
No.
It's a mark is coined by the mass media.
Yeah.
Actually, there's no God particle. It's just a particle, every particle kind. And then the media, because it's never been discovered before, so they call it God particle. So actually, there's no issue whether it's no anti-God or God. It's nothing, just another particle.
No, so why? What? No, I'm not asking the media. I'm not asking the media. Of course, the media can come up all the, But what is the meaning of that article, which is called the God particle? Just as of now, we have also the theory of all. The theory of everything. Yeah, the theory of everything. No.
Actually, the scientists themselves, they don't admit it's a God particle. So
Yeah, I know that.
It's just a coin, it's just a term coin, so actually there's no issue about it. So it's just a
No.
term put to a particle that is found, this particle is found. Because they have this huge collider, so they try to search for new particles. So it just turned out that this particle came out. And because it's new, never found before, they say, hey, this cannot, they say it's impossible. So this coin, the mass.
Is it from created from nothing?
Yes.
The particle emerges out of nothing?
No, it's not. It's because of other particles colliding. So
No.
then it comes up with this particle. That's all. To me, that's all. Just another particle. And they are still looking for new particles. So I don't know if they come up with another one, they'll call it what? God particle.
Yeah, this is the problem with modern cosmology. I said they break up the atoms into smaller particles and smaller and smaller particles. Okay, and what were they hoping for? They're hoping that ultimately they will discover the reality of matter. Okay. All right? But this has been discussed by the Muslim theologians, not scientists, theologians, the mutakallimun, the orang kalam, no? Because what is underlying matter is precisely that subtle world which is not visible to us. Yeah. Although under certain conditions they do, they can be visible under certain conditions, and this is where science want to apply to create these so-called conditions. You understand? And spends billions and billions of dollars in order to break the particles in order to find the ultimate reality of matter. They will never find that just by doing that way, that way. Yeah, I'm saying they will not discover that. I guarantee, of course, but you say, how do you know? Yeah, you can say to me, how do you know? Well, we know when we know the nature of reality underlying that physical reality, yeah, then we know that we're not going to find that. Yeah, they will discover, for example, the black holes. The black hole, they find a black hole. Although we are not saying that is not possible. It is possible, but how do we interpret? The question now: how do we interpret these black holes? Yeah, because the idea of things appearing and disappearing, that is part of the concept of Islamic cosmology, the cosmos. Yeah, visible things appear out of the invisible world called the subtle world. Yeah, that beyond certain world is made of light. Yeah. So within the physical world, there's that, I said, that chaotic condition that which is proved by the nuclear fission. Nuclear fission prove that there is that chaotic domain. But in terms of the particles, um, the Muslim cosmologists believe that there is the non-physical substratum, the concept substratum, yeah, on which of course they all related to the secondary agents of the angels and the forces of God. Sorry, this for some because this is quite technical. Technical, I have to go into that. Yeah, but maybe you can have a small workshop on that among only the people who have the necessary knowledge on the subject.
Good. It's 10:05 already. I think we have a lot of intellectual food that we are trying to digest. Okay, all right. Thank you very much, Prof. Okay, for the time and the enlightenment that you have provided us. Well, the intellectual food is in front. There is some physical food at the back. Okay, that Simply Islam has provided for everyone. Thank you very much, Brother Nasir. Okay, for the physical food and more intellectual food. Okay, for you to take back the books.
Please don't get stuck with the pictures. Must go beyond the pictures.
Alright, so the book is there, right, at $25. So you can then line up and get the Prof's photograph of this, right? So once again, thank you very much, Prof, and thank you everyone for your time, alright, coming to this wonderful lecture, right, and with the recitation of the Speak of our answer. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Subhanallah wa bihamdihi, asyhadu an la ilaha illa anta, astaghfiruka wa atubu ilaik. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. إلى الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق. صلى الله على خير خلقه سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. والحمد لله رب العالمين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله.